Hi everyone, Janie here, and today I'm going to give you a sewing lesson that is perfect for beginners like me. We are going to be making a doggy bandana, and unlike the kind that tie, this kind uses snaps, and these are easy snaps. And I originally saw this on Lori Noonmaker's YouTube channel, and I will put a link below to that so you can go check her out. And I finally decided I wanted to make my own video for my viewers. So let's head on over and get started. You can make this doggy bandana any size you want, and for this first one that I'm showing you, I'm cutting it down to 12 inches by 12 inches. And this is what it looks like, obviously. And then what you're going to do is fold it corner to corner, just like this, with the right sides on the inside and the wrong sides on the outside. And as you can see, a 12 by 12 square makes an almost 17-inch neckline, but that will actually get a little bit smaller once you do the sewing. Now for this next one, I'm jumping up to a 14-inch by 14-inch square, and as you can see, that will make the neckline just over 20 inches, but again, like I said, that will get smaller once you do the sewing. And this next one is 16 inches square, and that will make a neckline of almost 23 inches until you sew it. So those are just a few examples just to, show you the measurements, and you can always make them bigger or smaller to fit your needs. Now let's get back to the 12-inch square one because that's what I'm going to use to walk you through this process. Okay, you are going to fold it corner to corner just like this, and then you're either going to use straight pins or clips or a marker to mark off a section that's about 2 to 3 inches long, and you are not going to sew there because that's going to be the opening you use to turn it right side out. You can also use pins or clips near the corners just to keep everything lined up straight for when you go to sew it. Now it's time to go to your sewing machine and sew, and you're only going to be sewing down those 2 open sides. You're not going to sew across the fold, and don't forget to leave that one section open, and also be sure to backstitch when you start and finish. Okay, just to show you the sewing I did, I backstitched there, came along the edge, backstitched there, left that opening, backstitched, and then finished and backstitched again. So normally, if there is excess at the corners, you would trim it off, but I seem to have gotten pretty close to those corners, so I'm going to leave them alone. But at that corner right there, there is a little excess fabric, and I'm going to clip that off, but I'm going to stay away from the stitching. That will help get the corners a little bit pointier and not so bulky. Okay, so now let's find that opening we left and start turning this right side out. I'm just going to speed this up a little bit for you so you don't get bored watching me turn it right side out. Okay, now it's time to make those corners look like corners. And what I'm using here is a bone folder because I'm a crafter and I happen to have one. But if you don't, you can always use a ballpoint pen without the pen poking out because you don't want ink everywhere and you don't want to poke a hole in it. Or you can use a chopstick or anything else you have handy that you can fit up inside there and just kind of poke those corners until they look nice and sharp like corners are supposed to look. Sometimes this process can take a while, so I'm going to speed it up. But basically all I'm doing is just poking into those corners and just kind of stretching it around until they look nice and pointed just like this. And now it's time to do a little ironing. I sped this up just a little bit, but what I'm doing is ironing out all of the edges, making sure that everything is nice and smooth and crisp. Now this next part is optional, but I like to use a piece of heat and bond to seal up that opening that we didn't sew so that we could turn it right side out. And this just keeps everything secure. That's a permanent bond, so I wouldn't even need to sew over it, but we are going to be doing some more sewing, and so for me, this just keeps everything in place. But if you're a seasoned seamstress, you probably don't need to do this step at all. Now that the heat and bond is secure in there and I've taken off the protective layer, it is time to iron that opening closed. I actually love Heat and Bond Ultra Hold because it is permanent and it's easy to use, and it's by Thermoweb, which is a company that I absolutely love and trust. And now with that done, it is time to head back over to the sewing machine because what we're going to do is just sew right along the edges of all three sides, giving it a wonderful finished look. Now, doesn't that look nice? And this was so easy to make. I mean, I am truly a beginner, and it was really easy. And so now it is time to add the snaps. So the dog I'm making this for has a 13.5-inch collar, but I decided I wanted to put the snaps 14 inches apart just to make sure that it wasn't too snug. And it looks like I'm going to have to put those snaps as close to the corners as possible, and I'm going to be using cam snaps. And they're really great. I'll put a link below in the description box for you because this set came with the tool and a sample collection of snaps in a variety of colors. These are so easy to use. So one piece, the piece I'm putting in right now, looks like a tack. So it has a pointed end that you just poke right through the fabric. And then it has another piece that goes on the other side. And then you just use this tool to squeeze them together, and you can see how easy that is even with my hand in a thumb brace. Normally I don't drop it, and normally I don't use two hands. So with that end done, it's time to do the other end, and this time we are going to poke that snap through the opposite side. And then there is another piece that goes on there that is different than the other one, and that's what makes them snap together. They fit together, so it doesn't really matter which one you put on which end, as long as you are putting one on one end and one on the other, and one facing down and one facing up like I just did, and then they will snap together perfectly, just like that. This whole thing is pretty easy, right? These are so quick and easy to make, and I actually made 3 of them today while recording this video. And to model them for you is my handsome Zach and my sweet little Zoe winking at you. I hope I made this fun project easy enough to follow. And don't forget, there's going to be a link below in the description box to those cam snaps that I used. And they are just really easy to use, and that all came in a kit, the tool and the snap pieces, and I think you're gonna like it, so check it out, and happy sewing, everyone. Bye bye.